Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz, and we are joined today by Ken Horn. He is a member of the Michigan State Senate. He chairs the Economic Development Committee, and I think it's fair to say economic development has become a punching bag a bit in budget negotiations. We see that the MEDC has seen some cuts in the recent state budget, the film incentive program, likewise, some cuts. What's going on here?
Well, it's a tough time. We went into this budget cycle thinking we had to cut $500 million out of the state budget. We know now that we've from the last revenue conference that we have a little bit extra. But the House looked at how it could fund roads without new revenues, without raising taxes, and economic development was on their radar screen.
But it seems to me, sir, that even economic development is a formula that allows the state to bring in more revenue, because when you develop blighted areas or you revitalize a region, what you're doing is you're creating catalytic consequences that allow more tax revenue to come in.
Yes, and if you take a look at economic development, kind of, if folks that are watching our show here, think about economic development as a stereo equalizer, where the little red lights are jumping up and down, right? You've got tax policy and regulatory policy, energy policy, labor policy. If all of those things are really good in Michigan right now, and they're good and getting better, how do we compare to the Carolinas, to Texas? And all things being equal, how do we compete with them? And so we still need tools in the toolbox to help attract manufacturing back to Michigan. We are, I think, steeped in manufacturing in the state of Michigan. We need to maintain that base. I've never given up on the auto industry in the state of Michigan, and I think that the suppliers, the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, need our support. And even if those economic development dollars are used as investments for infrastructure surrounding some of these major job providers, the state of Michigan still has a role to play in growing that industry.
Right, and what happened with the film incentive program? We know that states throughout the union have been clamoring for that business. They're well-paying jobs. They employ so many folks around the production. California recently increased its film program. New York, you mentioned the Carolinas, they've constantly been increasing. And for all intents and purposes, the film incentive program is all but zeroed out. I mean, technically $25 million, but $19 million of it is going to pay off some retirement obligations, I guess, and so.
Yeah, and I supported the original film industry tax credits when then Representative Heisinger was working with Representative Dillon on the on the 21st Century Fund, and those credits were extraordinarily generous, to say the least. But when we changed the Michigan business tax, I sat on the tax policy committee to say that we're not going to give direct tax credits any longer. We're going to appropriate into a fund that, into the MEDC that now kind of backfills some of the work that we've been doing. I still support that. I think the film industry is still viable in Michigan. I think that our presence in the film industry is necessary.
How do you compete when you essentially only have $6 million with which to play?
You can't, and so I mean, right now the appetite in Lansing, in the House and the Senate, not to my liking, but the appetite is to eliminate the film industry office altogether, and so we're going to phase it out based on the contracts that are currently being held. So what can be done in between now and 3 years from now, when the last contract is put into place? I just think that once you make a promise, you need to follow through. Michigan can't, in its economic development, make promises it can't keep. We've seen some of our industry move to other states where they've made these huge, rich promises that.
Toronto's around the corner. I mean, any film production could so easily just go, take a right turn, and they're in Toronto, and it doubles for Detroit or Chicago.
And while I'm supportive of the film industry, it really has no big impact in my particular district.
Okay, that's fair. But you're a big supporter of economic development.
I am. And so the economic development that I'd like to see is geared around how do we supply the auto industry? What are we going to do for the medical community? We have in Saginaw, we have a new medical school. Central Michigan University is opening up a medical school. I need to protect economic development credits like the graduated medical program that we have. And so those dollars need to be protected, some $50 million as well, in order to open up residency programs right near this new school.
Of course.
And so how are we gonna grow manufacturing and advanced manufacturing, all kinds of tool and die, and in that economic arena, we can't leave out the skilled trades world and engineering. That the entire talent gap. I was just appointed recently to the governor's talent investment board. And it's our job to kind of help fill that gap. Where are we going to get tool and die makers, and where are we going to find welders, where are we going to find electrical engineers?
And I would think a lot of those welders could be well employed if Michigan started to improve its roads. But as you know, the voters of Michigan were less than kind when they were asked to provide funding to improve roads with Proposition 1. It got a whopping 20% of the vote. What do you make of that, sir?
Well, economic development, one of the things that keeps my economic development committee awake at night is the transportation issue, not just in terms of freight, seaports, rail,
of course,
airports, but the roads and bridges, moving freight by truck, getting people back and forth to work is extraordinarily vital to have a strong infrastructure to move things around in Michigan.
And it's interesting, the House recently passed a plan in the wake of the defeat of Prop 1, and in their plan, they went after economic development again. And we see that they're looking to cut $134 million from the MEDC. I mean, your baby, it keeps getting attacked.
Yeah, and I feel confident that we're going to take some of the good things out of the House plan, and we're going to do a combination of things to be able to solve the road problem. That was pretty much of a train wreck on May 5th, but I think we learned a lot of lessons. Number one, you need to keep the solution very simple.
Sure.
You need to make it very dedicated, and there needs to be an end game. And what I learned through the process over the last 4 months is that even if we had all the money that we needed, that you can only fix 10% of our roads at any given time in Saginaw area. If I fix I-75 and 675 and Holland Road at the same time, I shut down traffic. But I can't, commerce dies. And so if I'm looking at 10% increments, then I know that in order to fix all of our roads and bridges, it takes me 10 years. What I need is a solution that lives beyond my life cycle down here in the Senate. I can be here a maximum of 8 years. This needs to last 10. It can't just be we cut our way into a solution. We need to find a combination of things.
But let me ask you though, since simplicity seems to be the ticket, what about a simple solution of increase the sales tax from 6 to 7%, dedicate that money to transportation, to roads, to bridges? Done.
Well, you just described the bill that I'm writing. The problem with it is that I currently have one vote that's guaranteed to me to pass this.
What about the governor, though? I mean, he seems to be in favor of simplicity. Could you get him on board?
Yes, and but I think that after some of the caucus meetings, we've locked ourselves. We, the Senate, we didn't have a special committee that we assigned. We, the Senate, all 27 of us Republicans met in a caucus to talk about our solution.
And you'll come back and talk more about it?
Yes, we will.
His name is Ken Horn. He is a member of the Michigan State Senate. I'm Brett Pomerantz. This is Charter Local Edition.